Hey guys, I'm Law, and this is part 6, the finale of What If Tatsumi Was Archer's Reincarnation. Thank you to everyone that chose to take time out of your day to listen to this series. Anyways, I hate long intros, so let's begin. As Tatsumi was about to start his chant, he then started to recollect all his memories of his time as Shiro Amiya and his time as the counter-guardian Amiya, and thought how he had little memories of him actually being happy and actually enjoying his life, but those memories were soon replaced with his memories of his time in the village and his time with Night Raid, and would internally smile to himself. Seo, Liasu, grandfather, everyone at the village, Akane, Leon, Bulak, Lubbock, Chelsea, Susanoo, Najenda, Mine and Shiel, thank you all for being a part of life, Tatsumi said to himself internally as Tatsumi then began to say his chant. I am the bone of my sword. Steel is my body and is fire my blood. I have created over 1,000 blades. Unaware of death, nor aware of life. Withstood pain to create weapons, waiting for one's arrival. I have no regrets, this is the only way. My whole life is unlimited blade works. Both Tatsumi and his death would be engulfed by a bright white light, and they would both find themselves in a wasteland with hundreds of different swords, spears and shields being placed onto the ground with a bright blue sky with a giant gear rotating at the end of a giant hill. This is quite interesting. I'm assuming this is also part of your abilities, but tell Tatsumi, what good will it do you to bring me to a place filled with hundreds of weapons? Its death said while about to send 70 ice shards towards Tatsumi, but then 70 swords then came off the ground launching themselves at high speeds, destroying the ice shards as death had. Its death was left a little surprised by that attack, to which Tatsumi then responded that this is his most powerful ability, Unlimited Blade Works, a pocket dimension where he's copied so many weapons he's seen over his life. Not only can copy them, he could also improve them and can use them as projectiles. Its death was a little on edge by this, but remained composed as they still proceeded to continue fighting. Majority of the fight would be them constantly shooting projectiles at each other, blocking or dodging each other's attacks. Tatsumi would have the advantage as his swords were faster than her ice shards, plus when the ice shards and swords would make contact, the swords would break the ice and still head towards his death, forcing her to dodge by a hair, leaving with some cuts on her body. Although Tatsumi was pushing his death back, he still had to be smart on how he attacked, as he did release a decent amount of mana in the capital before his fight with his death, as he could feel his body starting to feel tired. Damn, my body still hasn't adapted to full release of my mana, Tatsumi thought to himself. Oh well, at least I'm able to push his death back. It seems that I'll be able to finish this fight quicker than I thought. Its death was getting frustrated by being on the defensive, so in order to get an attack she created a giant ice tower in order to get the high ground, and then summoned a giant ice ball almost instantly, way bigger than the one used to crush the danger beast when they were on the island, and sent the giant ice boulder towards Tatsumi. The ball was coming in fast, so Tatsumi sent hundreds and hundreds of explosive swords at high speeds towards the ball, and it gradually started to break, leaving nothing but smaller ice chunks, smoke and steam. As Tatsumi was about to send more swords towards his death above, Tatsumi's mind's eye sensed that he was about to receive a lethal blow to his left, and he was correct. When his death created the giant ball of ice, she knew that Tatsumi was going to destroy it, leaving smoke, steam and ice chunks, so she used this to her advantage to jump down. When she was halfway down in the steam and smoke, she activated her trump card, which lets her freeze time for 5 seconds, and she got to the ground. She charged towards Tatsumi at full speed, ready to slice him in half from the left, but was prepared and put more mana in his reinforcement magic, as when time started to move again, his death's sword was only a few inches from away from Tatsumi's shoulder, but Tatsumi was able to react and move fast enough to block the swing with both Kancho and Bakuya, and kicked his death back a couple of feet away. His death was annoyed by this, but in that look of annoyance it also seemed she was having fun, as she had never met such a challenging opponent. Both of them were half exhausted, but his death suffered more minor damages, and Tatsumi felt a little bit strained after putting so much mana in his reinforcement magic. They looked at each other and smirked. Both of them knew the next strike would end their battle, and the person last standing would be declared the winner. They both charged towards each other at full speed, and both of them preparing their attacks, as once they were both close enough to each other as Death used her sword to try and slice Tatsumi's head off at full force, but Tatsumi used Bakuya to block it even though it did break, and used Kansho to stab his Death in the stomach as she then collapsed to the ground. Guess it's my lost Tatsumi. It really would have been nice if we met. In different circumstances, as Death said while coughing up some blood. Yeah, but don't worry, you die, Tatsumi said. Is Death was a little confused by this, but soon noticed that Tatsumi placed his hand on her stomach and she started glowing green as the stab wound in her stomach started to close and the rest of injuries also started to heal up. Is Death was surprised, but then that surprise soon turned into laughter. You are full of surprises, Tatsumi, Is Death said. Considering it's my win, would this mean you no longer are part of the capital? Is Death stayed silent for a while but soon agreed, as she would have been dead if Tatsumi didn't heal her. Tatsumi then helped his Death up to her feet, but before he could disperse his unlimited blade works, he looked around it one more time, and the wasteland filled with so many weapons looked less lifeless than he remembered, almost as if the despair this place had was completely gone. Both Tatsumi and his Death left the reality marble, and Tatsumi sat down on a rock near the rumble to rest after realizing so much mana out of his body. Around 30 minutes of Tatsumi sitting down talking to his Death, he got up from his seat and both of them made their way to look for the members of Night Raid. In the meantime, both Bulak and Leon would eventually find the minister as he was trying to escape from one of the palace's underground tunnels. They first started beating him to bloody pulp until he couldn't stand or talk, then Leon proceeded to rip his limbs off one by one and eventually sliced his head off with her claws, as the minister was now dead. Around 10 minutes later, Tatsumi would meet up with the other members of Night, for them to see his Death following behind him. They were all preparing to attack, but Tatsumi told them that his Death was no longer a threat to them and explained their relationship to them. It took a lot of convincing for them to see his Death in a new light, especially for Mine and Shield, with Mine constantly yelling at Tatsumi, but thanks with the help of Wave and Run, Night Raid were able to accept his Death, with Mine and Shield more or less being able to share Tatsumi with each other. Bulak and Leon then arrived and Night Raid explained the situation to them. Once the child emperor was taken by the revolutionary army a week later, the people of the capital were to vote for a new emperor of the country, one that could lead the country to greatness. Also in the base of Night Raid, the members were still trying to get used to his Death, but it would need more time for them to full see her as a friend. Now that there were no more problems that he had to deal with, Tatsumi thought that it was time to fully go exploring around the world, but before he could prepare, he sent a large sum of money to his village he was able to get from doing Night Raid duties and by selling some valuable items from the palace. He also asked all the members but Night Raid if they would want to come with him. The only members that agreed were Mine, Shield, Akame, Wave, Leon, Chelsea and his Death. The rest could come because Run, Bulak, Susanoo and Nagita were helping in running the capital, and Lubbock was still running his bookstore but may end up joining whenever Tatsumi decides to visit the capital again. Lubbock was also able to make time to find Nagenda alone and confess to her. Nagenda was a little taken aback by this and kind of had mixed emotions about this. She was about to respectfully decline, but Lubbock interrupted her by saying, "Let me just take to you dinner, and if you don't like it we'll just leave it at that." Nagenda then looked at Lubbock and saw the determination and sincerity in his eyes as she agreed to have dinner with him a day after he confessed, and let's just say the dinner went better than expected. 2 weeks after the Emperor was taken, and Tatsumi and the members of Night Raid that decided to go exploring the world with him were all getting prepared and packing some of their belongings, mostly the essentials. They left the base and were to meet at the docks where they would take a ship to go to their first destination. Their ship then arrived 10 after 10 minutes of wait, a ship big and comfortable enough that they could travel for days on it. They all got on the ship and put their luggage in their quarters, and once the ship was about to leave, Tatsumi looked at the country one last time. He obviously wasn't going away for good, but he wasn't returning anytime soon. All Tatsumi could do was smile while he was still looking at the land as the ship was getting further and further away from the dock. "You okay, Tatsumi?" Wave said to Tatsumi from behind. "Yeah, just wondering what kind of adventures we'll all go on together," Tatsumi said. He looked back at Akame, Shiel, Mine, Wave, Leon and his death who were also on the dock and just smiled. I am truly blessed, Tatsumi said to himself and walked to join the rest of them. So that's it for this series. Hope you all enjoyed even though the last 2 parts came out 2 years later. I honestly hope I could make more what ifs in the future main on Asta from Black Clover, but I'm not sure if I'll find time for them. That being said, I do appreciate everyone for listening to not only this series but my other what if videos as well. I am Law and I hope to see you in the next one.